Thank you all for joining us this evening for Scouting in the United Methodist Church, Change Happens. Our presenter tonight will be Stephen Scheid, who is the Director of Scouting Ministries for the General Commission of United Methodist Men. Stephen is a previous pastor, chaplain, and charter org rep. He has sat on many Eagle boards. The question of duty to God has particular significance to him, and he wants to help connect ever-increasing nuns to the meaning of duty to God and hope and faith. And I'll let you take it from here. Waldo.
And that actually was the introduction to a different session, but still generically applicable.
It was that one or the Cub Scout lunch one, so that's what I had to work with, Mr. Stephen.
Cub Scouts work, actually.
Yeah, okay.
So this week actually has been really enjoyable and challenging. My grandsons have been suddenly brought from Denver all the way to Tennessee and dropped off at our house as their mother and my son-in-law have been out visiting friends and partying, and I'm just hoping we don't die from them being under 35. So I hope that you'll appreciate that reality check, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we'll go ahead and get started. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. The chat is being monitored by Susan, and she will interrupt me and ask questions. And hopefully what we get into is just kind of a more realistic perspective of where we're at. I know everybody believes that change happens, but I just wanted to point a few things out. A few changes have happened in the last 2 years just here at the Center for Scouting Ministries. Larry Kopic retired after 21 years. I got hired. The LDS shifted to what I would call an informal connection with Scouting. They haven't left. They left as a formal partner, so they've become an informal connection. And that's important for us to keep in mind. The called session of conference, the Boyette resolution and the traditional position, and the Judicial Council put both parts of both on hold, which means the United Methodist Church jumped into a place we call limbo. The ESA started their bankruptcy process. Oh yeah, and COVID happened, which means our Scouters Religious Academy out of North Georgia area went virtual. Our Philmont training went virtual. We're doing this today. The Girl Convention for Girl Scouts went virtual. So change does happen. And as change happens, I have to ask you this basic question: what do you see? You know, you've likely heard the fable about the blind man and the elephant. It's a tale that's told to help us capture the idea of perspective. One version of the story is told as 4 blind men were asked to determine what an elephant was like. The first blind man steps up and exclaims, "The elephant is like a tree branch. It's strong and flexible." The second blind man, who feels the tongue of the elephant hanging out, insists the elephant is wet, rough, and smells like old leaves. The third person feels the tail and says the elephant's like a rope. It's frayed on the end. Old leaves is an understatement. The fourth blind man feels the belly and says the elephant is like a wall made of particularly rough stucco. But the truth of it is that none of them describe the elephant in whole. It's not the wall of the belly or the rope of the frayed tail or the tree limb of the trunk. It's all of that and more. So change really does happen. And how we see change depends on what piece of it we're looking at. So I've got several items I'd like to go over. Some of you have seen some of this information. It's things that have been on my heart as we look at ministry. There is a large generation gap in American religion. When you look at the older generations, we predominantly identified as Christian. We predominantly identified with faith groups. And within millennials, 40% of US adults identify themselves as not affiliated. They're nuns. In the US, the number of religious nuns has grown by nearly 30 million over the past decade. This reality is that Gen Z is headed even deeper into this category of unaffiliating. Organizations are going to be suffering pretty deeply. Those changes that have happened in 2018, religious identity showed a shift. 35% of Gen Z said that they were either atheist or agnostic. Those two growing categories are actually kind of shocking to some of us. I don't like to consider myself an elder or a boomer, but I am old enough to relate to those generations where, we didn't say atheist in terms of where we stood. We understood what agnostic actually meant, and a lot of youth don't understand that yet today. Within the Methodist Church, and those who are non-Methodist joining us tonight, this is actually specific to the Methodist Church for a reason, because we are talking about what we might be doing as a Methodist Church. We are actually connecting with fewer adults with children than ever before. At 24% of the church having children in the church, those are children under 18, our ability to connect with youth inside the church is on a tremendous downslide. The other portion of this that needs to be understood is 63% of the Methodist Church is over 50 years old. So when you put that into context, 50 years from now, 63% of the existing church will be dead. And if COVID keeps going the way it is, maybe even faster than 50 years. I'm not trying to rush it. So change does happen, but change has also happened in many different ways that we're not thinking of. But technology has made life easier. And, honestly, I go back to my roots, and I can't imagine, as the gold miners did, walking from St. Louis to California. It blows my mind that you would actually go that far by foot. I've done marathons, and to be honest with you, it's not an idea that I cherish it at this point in my life. Globally, we're connected now more than ever. And UNICEF has shared some of these stats. At the global level, it's estimated that 1 child in 3 is an internet user. 1 in 3 internet users is a child under 18 years old. Now, to give you a perspective, that's 33% of all the internet users are under 18, while they only represent 29% of the population. They are the most densely populated group on the internet. The rate of connectivity is increasing faster and faster than any other group that's ever been. That's the 3 to the 18-year-old group. And in 2018, this has actually increased since then. In the United States, 94% of 3 to 18-year-olds had home internet access. So why do we start putting these pieces of the puzzle together? The nuns are increasing. The church is not connecting with children. The church is getting older. We're connected electronically more than we've ever been. Why do we start to put these things together? Because change has already happened. The Barna Group did a study called The Connected Generation. They interviewed more than 15,000 adults in that new coming in group from 18 to 35 in 25 countries, 9 languages, and they asked them where they stood. So here's some of the essential study pieces that came out of it. The next generation feels deeply connected to each other. They can swipe left, right, like, they can give a like. Now they can give a care emoji. Here's your big hug that I can't give you. But in spite of all of that, they feel globally minded and alone more than any other generation in history. it's a dichotomy that's not really easy to grasp in a lot of ways. They are spiritually open. Now, this is a general and sometimes surprising openness towards spirituality, religion, and in many cases, church, formal church, but less among those who have left their faith. So if the church hasn't hurt somebody inadvertently or intentionally, people kicked them out or judged. If there are people who were not raised in the church, they're actually incredibly open to the church. Their spirituality is open, which is really, really kind of a unique place because we don't think of that group of people who say, yeah, I'm not affiliated, as being open to the church, but they are. They actually relate by living in an age of anxiety, worry, and insecurity, often tied to finance and vocation, are part of how they function. As the world has become more chaotic and complex, they actually have started to find themselves looking for answers. They see human suffering and global conflict as the top issues for spiritual doubts. Now, here's the thing that I want you to think about. We're actually at the time period in history when global stability, that's war and overall global crime, is lower than previous generations, but their sense of awareness of human suffering and global conflict at an all-time high. When you put connectivity together and the news still has to make headlines, we start to develop that age of anxiety in all of these people, and they're looking for answers. One of the most hopeful pieces of what's happening in the change is they're longing to make a difference. When young adults engage with the community of worship, they're looking for concrete teaching, opportunities to fight injustice, and they're looking for friends. They're looking for the fellowship. Now, you heard me. They're looking for the fellowship that happens when they make a difference together. I see chats coming by. Is there anything specific I need to slow down on, Susan?
Sorry, I was unmuting. No, I think you're good for now. Let me check and make sure.
Okay.
No, I think not really any questions. One of them came up, will the slides be made available?
The answer is yes.
Yes, I post a link to our Google Drive. So if we don't have it up there yet, we will get it up right after your presentation.
Fantastic. But to kind of help you understand in summary of all of that, we really can't stand back and watch a generation flounder. One of the things that I pointed out at the Western Region Board meeting that was striking to me is the rate of decline of membership of adults in BSA. In 2018, the ratio between youth, the rate of youth decline in membership versus the rate of adult membership was striking because it has increased substantially more. The rate of adults is dropping faster than the rate of youth. Now, I know the numbers will say that there are actually more youth leaving than there are adults leaving. Well, that's true. But that rate has changed. The problem that we have because of that change is that we need additional adults to step in. The elephant in the room for us and this is primarily Methodist, but it also is our scouting partners. Reality is it's not general conference. It's not whether we're going to split or separate or whatever our structural change is going to be, because we're going to have structural changes. That has happened across the church for centuries, and the church still existed. That elephant in the room is not the changes in BSA or other partners. It's not even the COVID changes. Our elephant is the loss of connection with the generation. It's that generational difference that we start to see where atheism and agnosticism and the nuns going through the roof, and all of us in the older generations, and I'll include myself there, are starting to have to find a way to relate differently. Our elephant is the ability to connect. We need to build relationships with younger adults. And it's critical that we feed their spirits as a part of being in ministry. You know, Scouting was formed at the end of the Third Great Awakening. It was also at the crux of the Industrial Revolution that those partners were founded. There was what I would call a real Malachi turning moment when the hearts of the fathers turned to their children and they wanted something for them. When you look at the people who were involved and you look at the organizations that started, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Campfire, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, 4-H, the YMCA, and many others, all starting at a single period of time, there was a coalescence of events. There was an elephant in the room, and somebody decided to have a barbecue. The questions are we feeling too busy to be a part of eating up the elephant? I would hope not. So this is what the next generation of non-Christians are looking for in somebody that they want from a Christian in terms of conversation. And I'm speaking from this part because this is the Methodist change in scouting. We need to shift our ministry. We need to be intentional about connecting the 18 to 35-year-olds to the scouting program in a way that opens the door for leadership and growth development. They are looking for spiritual mentors. We will not be successful in being in ministry with them if we don't start to look at what they want when we start connecting with them. So the only way that we can really deal with the elephant is to start becoming a movement again. A movement is generated by feelings and people who connect on a common goal and move in a common direction. We need to start with that connecting and then move into our common goal. They already have an openness to the Spirit. The next generation is far less likely to be interested in the institution of church, but they are more interested in the body or the people of Christ. They're interested in social justice because they want things to go well for the body. They're interested in the people that are the church. So we need to be open to having spiritual conversations that don't judge, that don't force conclusions, that allow others to draw their own conclusions. We need to be interested in others. That is, what are their hurts? What are their joys? What are their needs? What are their concerns? We need to be a sounding board where we listen twice, answer once. We need to be able to do what Christ did when he asked the man, "What would you have me do?" And Christ listened, and then he responded. I think too often we're willing to jump in to try and fix something before we understand what they need or what they want. We need to be confident in our faith perspective with an invitation to seek God, but also confident enough that we can allow them to seek their own answers. We need to be living examples. We need to be the connection. In the church, we have a connectional polity. What that really means is that structurally, we have the book of discipline. We have things that tell us what we should do. But to be a connectional polity doesn't mean that we're actually connected. As I've traveled across the United States, I can tell you particularly that the book of discipline in a lot of places is not really an admired piece of work. And yet the irony is most people haven't read it, but they see it as the book of rules. So just because we're structurally supposed to be connected doesn't mean we are. We need to be what we were in the beginning, which was a connectional people. We need to reach out, and we need to reach out intentionally to that generation that is going to be coming into our church, who's not been in church, who doesn't affiliate with a church. We need to be drawing in, rare people like Amanda and Eric, who are in their 30s, who already get it, because they actually can help us to have insight in how we connect. And I doubt that, and I'm using Amanda and Eric so I can pick on them, but I'll be honest, I doubt that they've ever used a pair of cans and string. It actually works, but we need to start looking at it differently. As a connectional ministry, even in the COVID world, we need to start connecting electronically. We need to be a part of the conversation that's happening online. Theology is actually beginning to converge among the younger generation. People are saying that, it doesn't matter what faith you have, as long as you have something maybe, or if you're just spiritual even. The church needs to become a part of our connectional tool as well, but not because of the structure piece, but the body that is the church. That's really an important theological move that not only helps people who haven't been in the structural piece of the church, but offers an open door for them to grow into faith. It's not the rituals that we have in church that offend people. It's the people who aren't connecting that offends people. We need to be that community that changes where we're at. So the thing that I want to encourage you to do, this is the call to action. And before we got started, we were talking about smoking meat. I've got some meat at home sitting in a dry rub, ready to go in a slow smoker. And it's going to take about 8.5, 9 hours to get it right where it's perfect. It takes a lot of time. You can't eat an elephant in one setting. You have to invite a lot of friends, and it takes a long time of cooking. But we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere. And that starting point is becoming a movement again. So within the Methodist Church, all of the things that we've allowed to get us distracted, general conference, bankruptcies, those things, to be honest with you, are not going to be the things that change for the positive our ministry. Those are going to be things that we overcome as a part of moving forward in ministry. When you care and love about people, it doesn't necessarily matter what's going on around you. Jesus Christ was there in the middle of an occupation by the Romans in Jerusalem, and yet he still ministered. He started the movement. He brought a few people together, connected deeply, shared with them. They went out, they connected with people deeply. They shared the connection, and it began to grow and grow and grow and grow. And if you think about it this way, Jesus Christ was probably the most powerful patrol leader around. He had 12 guys that were in his patrol, and he talked and he asked questions. And they went together and they camped as they went from city to city. This isn't a new concept. That's how movements start, and that's how movements grow. We need to open our doors, truly open our doors to ministry that really connects people. And I've been struggling with how we do that exactly. What I do know is the data portion of the next generation that we need on our team, because we're not going to live 50 years. I know that we need to address the elephant in the room. We need to introduce it. We need to take time with it. And I know that we can make it happen. But it's not going to happen by sitting back and pretending that that this change hasn't been coming. Because these changes have been coming. And as a church, if we live into our call into Christ, we live differently. And scouting, I tell you what, I worship Jesus Christ. I don't worship scouting. I love scouting. And I find it to be the biggest wrench in my toolkit when I want to change somebody's life as a Christian, because I spend time at the campfire with them. We get to talk. We get to be in fellowship. Discipleship is this mentoring process that is beautiful. And they don't have to be in the same faith group as me for us to spend time together and my life to witness to my personal faith. It becomes ministry in everything that we do. And that's enough of my blah, blah, blah. This is really the part where it gets fun, because you raise your hand, Susan unmutes you, we have questions or a chat, and we have conversations. I love that part.
That sounds good. Thank you, Stephen. So Rick had posted on the chat that, Stephen, your message about the United Methodist Church totally aligns with the BSA membership, and we should have the same call to action.
Last summer, I was out at Philmont, and I got to spend time with one of my favorite Methodists. Actually, okay, a lot of my favorite Methodists and some of my favorite Catholics and Jewish friends and Baptist friends, et cetera, et cetera. But I got to spend some time with Ellen Morrison. We were talking about that unique dynamic that we were missing. And I don't know if any of you have it set up on panel view and kind of look. Most of us are gray. I shave my beard intentionally because this is where my gray is. It makes me look younger. It just does. But the reality is we're missing a group of people. And we have to start connecting with them. I've been spending time with my grandsons and my daughter, and they think very differently. And if we don't start shifting how we connect, we're going to miss it. My oldest grandson's 8, and he had his first hot dog roast, his first s'more, his first set in a hammock, his first time fishing. And I was telling the director of the Center for Men's Ministry, Rick, I told him, I said, yep, I'm very disappointed in my daughter's criminal behavior. He goes, oh, what's she been doing? I said, it's not what she's been doing. It's the things that she's not been opening the door with. So I would say, to be straight up with David, the future break within the Methodist Church is there is going to be some form of division that happens within the Methodist Church. I think this COVID experience has actually really put us on a more unique course, realizing how much we need each other as a church, which I think will be very positive. I do believe something's coming. I don't know what. I don't have a crystal ball. And I could not get 864 people, which is the number of delegates to our general conference, to agree on any one statement if I had to. It's just a part of how life functions. But what we've agreed on here is our board at the UMC scouting side of things has already begun to reach out to the Nazarenes, to the AME, to other Methodist fellowships. We have decided that our arms are not big enough to incorporate working together in ministry with all of the people out there. So we are reaching out even further. Whether there's a conservative side or a progressive side, liberal side, an old stodgy side, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. The ministry of scouting is the ministry of connecting with younger people and opening the door for faith opportunities that they're missing. And that's where we're headed. So our intent and part of my travels within the United States has been to make connections in all aspects of the church, with all people of the church, so that we build a very big tent. And I think when we become a connectional ministry, we connect people when when the Methodist Scouters get together, you should know that we have people that have rainbow flags at their house. And they're Scouters, and it's okay. And we have people who have other flags at their house, and it's okay, because we all agree on the mission. And the mission is to help youth and to live out our Christianity. Elizabeth, I absolutely agree with silver lining on COVID. That is one of them. That people are looking out and saying, I need connection. So they're caring more. They're doing things to be aware of each other more. I will tell you another thing that is unique is at our Methodist Scouters Conference, we've had 56 people there in a room. Felt pretty good about it, like, yay. And we did our virtual Scouters Conference. We had 136 people sign up. I was telling everybody, if you sign up and you can't attend, that's cool. We'll send you the videos. And so we had 64 people one day. We had 62 the other day. And some of those did not stay. They came for one class, swapped out. We had the Scouters Religious Academy in partnership with the National Catholic Committee in Georgia. And we had about 300 people. So we've actually opened our door to connecting with a broader audience digitally than we ever have. I want to go back. I got to tell you, I'm craving the fellowship of my buddies. the great slumber party that we call Philmont for the Methodist Scouters. I miss that. I miss it terribly. But I'm also excited that we have this open door of connection, and it's not going away.
Stephen, one of the things you haven't mentioned is that you don't have to be Methodist to come to the Methodist Scouters conferences.
Wait, before you join, I have a friend here named John Anthony. He's with the National Catholic Committee on Scouting. And he didn't frown like he was not happy that I called him a friend. But to be honest with you, we work with everybody. We love everybody. This is a part of our mission. This really is a part of our mission. And it's no different in some ways, whether you're progressive or conservative. The reality is we have a singular mission, and that's to care for youth. The part of it, I think, that sometimes gets lost is that in caring for youth, if we're doing this right, we also are caring for the other adults. It really opens up a door when we have that fellowship. I wish you guys could have been there for the Bears, the Duty to God Bears activity. It's called Duty to God Fellowship. And I ask them, why fellowship? And it's amazing to hear the answers of little kids. So it was really good. All right, I need to quit reading the chat.
We got a smile out of John. There it is.
So,
what efforts are being made by the Methodist Committee on Scouting to educate our clergy? Clearly, there's a significant segment of our clergy who, they may be charter orgs and or they may have been scouts themselves or had children who were scouts. Absolutely get the program. But there are millennial and even older clergy who still have this notion that we are exclusive, upper middle class, white oriented, and basically haters in a lot of ways. And I'm just wondering what sort of concerted effort is being made to try and reach our Methodist clergy to let them know that we're all on the same team.
One of the things that's happening specifically here, Tom, is that Martin Methodist College is here in town, well, close by to Nashville. And we are working with Martin Methodist to write a semester curriculum called Using Youth Serving Agencies as Ministry. Because a lot of churches don't actually have the ability to build an organization where they have a structured activity which allows for time to be together and do discipling and mentoring. And they also don't have the connection to do all the background checks and all the things as well as they should or could. Should, yes. I'll leave it at should. They don't have the resources to do all the insurance that they have. So one of the things that we're actually doing is building a college course that can go into a seminary that looks at what happens when you take a community organization, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, you partner as a church with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, with Boy Scouts or with Girl Scouts, or with your Boys and Girls Club or 4-H. And you really truly partner as a church, you see it as a ministry of the church, and you utilize the program as a way of connecting adults to other adults and to youth, and consequently, you're going to be connected to the community. And when your community does better, a church in the community does better. So there's a very specific thing. One of the specific things that we're working on is actually a seminary course to wake people up and say, why would you want to deny one of the basic resources that you have that's already there? So that's one of the pieces. We have some bishops.
There's a pamphlet that the BSA Religious Relationship Subcommittee membership has developed to use when you're trying to talk to heads of religious organizations. Clarence Clayton has copies of that. You can download it and they can give them out. Or it was geared to go to seminarians, and not Catholic seminarians, but all seminarians.
Right.
So it's a good piece. I don't know. Have you seen it, Steve?
I've seen that one. Don't get jealous. I don't know if you guys had your update on literature yet. Our national religious partner from BSA, we just got done rewriting the Methodist Introduction to Scouting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a trifold, and it actually has some inserts, and it allows us to work with BSA to introduce pastors to the program. And it speaks from a pastor's voice.
Right.
And that kind of, I think one of the things that happened in the Methodist Church is a little different, is this role, the director for the Center for Scouting Ministries. There have been 3 people who filled the role. All of them were former BSA DEs. And when I got hired, I've been a former pastor. I've not been a DE. I don't come from a organizational place that is a part of Boy Scouts of America, other than volunteer and passionate believer in discipleship. So I actually approach this as ministry. And when I talk to pastors, I talk to them about ministry.
Right.
And that's an important differential in where we're coming from now from where we've been.
Could I circle back to Ed, and I won't monopolize any more time after this.
Sure.
The course that you mentioned at the seminary near you, that's up and running and in the can, or it's under development?
It's under development. So it's under development because you wouldn't believe what it takes to get seminaries to agree to, let alone give somebody credit for it.
Yeah.
There are things that we've done at local Methodist seminaries, Emory University. Chris Carabinas down there is the conference scouting coordinator. And what he did is he went and bought Subway sandwiches for all of the seminarians who wanted to come to a hosted lunch. And he talked about Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts as scouting ministries of the church, and fed them a sandwich. Said he had over 60 people there. He figured it was because of the sandwiches, but the reality is they might have got something out of it. So being able to host those events is actually one of those ways in which you don't just, I think of it as not just feeding bodies, but you feed souls, and maybe open the door for a future too. So there are things we can do.
On that same page.
At the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops that's held in November in Baltimore, we have a breakfast, sponsor a breakfast for the bishops, and we usually get about 80 bishops to that. And we bring them up to date on what's happening in scouting. I don't know if you have a similar meeting in the Methodist Church where you bring everybody. Oh, I guess so. You're talking about a general conference. You might want to have well, maybe not. You may want to have some sort of free meal for them to come to. And we gave them a little token of appreciation. Sorry, I'll be quiet.
No, what was planned for our general conference this year actually was Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Pray Publications. We're all each going to have a booth at our general conference, which lasts 2 weeks. And that actually is been moved to late August 2021. So we've got plenty of time to kind of regroup and figure it out.
You may notice that the background that I'm absent from contains the 5 organizations with which the Methodist Church works. They all have different values. They have different methods, but the result is really the same. They want to develop healthy, strong-minded, good leaders, and faithful young adults. We are in the middle of constructing an introductory course. It'll be about an hour long. That will be suitable for presentations not only to our local churches and our conferences, but to pastors, clergy people. It will also be useful. It will be also useful in other faiths. I believe that looking at it will incline people to think about scouting as a ministry and as an opportunity for discipleship.
Absolutely. And so this week has been focused on BSA, and really should be, and it is hosted by the National Religious Relations Committee. But one of the things that you should kind of realize is we do partner with multiple organizations. And one of the things that, like Jim was saying, is we encourage each church to recognize that it has a spiritual personality. You get 12 people in a room together and they start to function with a unique personality to that congregation. And we encourage them to find the ministry that fits their personality. BSA, I believe, has a bit of an advantage in that it's got venturing, it's got Cub Scouts, it's got Sea Scouts, it's got troops, Scouts BSA. So it has a fairly wide variety of opportunity to open the door for scouting in terms of personality. But the other organizations we partner with have very unique personalities that do amazing work as well.
Stephen, one of the things that I brought up earlier in the week and I asked Amanda, and she said she would address, is where BSA fits within other organizations. Within the Methodist Church, of course, it's actually a formal ministry, but we also need to find out where these other organizations fit officially within all of the various faith groups. When we reach out and touch these various churches and mosques and others to find out how do we talk to them appropriately.
So one of the things that I'll tell you that's happening with the other partners is Girl Scouts of America has hired that faith-based manager. I believe you met Cara.
Yep.
So our partnership with them has actually begun to grow just tremendously. And as a result, one of the things that's happened is I've learned the amazing amount of overlap between the Buddhist Committee on Scouting. They cover both Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. United Churches of Christ, they cover both Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. To answer your question, we do not, sorry, I saw one that caught me. I follow Trail Life. I get their emails, I get their information. We do not currently endorse Trail Life or American Girls, Heritage Girls. We did, as the United Methodist General Commission, endorse American Heritage Girls. They revoked their memorandum of understanding in 2015 when we did not revoke our memorandum of understanding with Boy Scouts of America. Thank you, Tom, I got that. So actually what happened was they walked away from us. We endorsed 4-H, and 4-H, when we went to renew our memorandum of understanding, this said, we're a government-sponsored organization, and we can't have a church with our name on it. Now, that's the national perspective. Local churches partner with 4-H all the time to provide resources, people, and connection. And the national 4-H organization accepts that, but they don't want us to put their logo next to our logo. So we don't. We honor that. As far as Trail Life goes, we are watching. We have not chosen to endorse them yet. That's up to the board to decide. I bring information and kind of step back and watch the fireworks. So that's the interesting parts of where we're at. I see a lot of cookie conversation. What's up with that? Do people know that Susan's here?
Stephen,
I
you
wasn't even part of that conversation.
We're
Yes, Jim.
recruiting.
Yeah, you know what you really have to stop is don't say like what wood batch critter you are. Chat will just blow up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you're trying to
No,
read real
no.
questions, and so that's for afterwards.
Well,
Okay.
I don't see
Carolyn started it with inviting everybody over for with casseroles.
Right?
So
All y'all
I
come
think
to my house.
Stephen,
Jim had a real question.
I do. It's a non-cookie question. You mentioned that Chris had done some work with Emory. Do we have other folks that are contacting some of these young people that are going into the ministry at other locations?
No, we don't. One of the things that we are actually going to be doing, though, is we have the lay leaders conclave. So annual conferences have the primary lay leader.
Yeah.
And that actually happens here in Nashville. It's a formal training. And Rick Vance has been a part of that. And I actually will be doing a session on the scouting ministries for all the annual conference lay leaders meetings. And so we are moving into some of those additional areas.
Yeah. I've tried to get time at our annual conference in Missouri to talk about scouting, and there are a lot of priorities, and I haven't been successful thus far. But it's you know, that's a place where I think we could make an impact if we could get the opportunity to use a mic. Thanks for doing this. It was enjoyable, and I'd like to get a copy of the recording. And Susan, you said that's going to be available at some point in time?
It is. We have been putting the recordings up on the Duty to God Facebook page, and Amanda has them, and she'll put them up on our Duty to God website and then the YouTube channel, so we can get it to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then resources, I'll make sure we get the PowerPoint from Steve, and anything else we can put on the Google Drive that we sent links out to.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so the recording would have the PowerPoint. So, okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, and once you get the PowerPoint, you can look at the barbecue. It made me hungry.
I didn't want to throw out and chat and start more conversation, but that's literally what Mitch is fixing for dinner right now is ribs. So, you know, I don't know how much longer we have on our Zoom, but.
I see 6 minutes. If anybody has a really good question. If not, I just want to thank you for spending time here. You know, even though we're cooped up, we can't go places. This is one of those times in which building the connections with people individually, opening the doors to learning and growing is one of the ways in which we can actually make this time something that becomes an exponential rocket when we do get the chance to get back and get together. If we let this time sit, atrophy is a very real possibility. And Carolyn mentioned it. We are already set for June 27th through July 3rd at Philmont for 2021. I got paperwork from Nick. I do want to talk to you about
what's that date again?
June,
what's the date?
June 27th through July 3rd.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to actually, I am copying all the chats so that I don't miss any of it right now and going to save it.